What's going on, y'all? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing a recent game I played against this man, Yellow Zerg kevinnnleee. But I'm going to be taking a look at it from his point of view and hopefully analyzing what he did wrong and how he could have improved his game. Some of you might remember this stream. Of course, at the time, you saw it from my perspective, Terran. So I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at it from only the Zerg perspective. Once again, this is a ZVT. He knows it's a ZVT. I wasn't random or anything, and even if I was, I would have told him my race. But he knows it's a ZVT. And he's gonna throw down that hatchery first, hatch gas pool. It's a very standard opening. You can usually get away with it in any matchup. So that's a fine opening. And gonna be droning up to 17, it looks like. So super standard there. Now, one thing to note right away, this Overlord, where's it going? Kind of an awkward path here. I guess over to the back here somewhere. I don't really see its waypoint. It's not really the best spot, but not the worst either. I mean, it is safe here. I would probably prefer it somewhere over there to watch for any move outs. Second Overlord spotting for any proxies, and maybe like 20 to 30 seconds ago, if you don't see anything coming your way, you can start to move this out towards the back of the main base so you can get ready to float that in for a scout later on. Very minor things, but they do matter. Now Kevin starting things off with 6 lings. That's a little much. I think 2 or 4 would be plenty. 6, that's just a little overkill, I would say. But we do know Kevin likes his army units. And another thing I noticed a lot from him is constantly mining gas. You don't really need this much gas right now. As we see, 136 gas. That's why. That's why most Zergs will pull 2, sometimes even all 3 drones off and just get that extra mineral income. And it does add up. Now, using those lings, I like this actually. You have the lings and there's nothing coming your way, so use them and do a little damage. And he is getting some decent damage, taking out a couple Marines, taking out 1 or maybe 2 SCVs. Could have microed them a little bit better to get that SCV, but yeah, all in all, that was a good attack, making use of those 6 lings. And getting a decent scout here, spotting that factory. And would like to see him back away now, which he kind of does. Yeah, can't really fight that bunker, so these lings likely gonna go down. And okay, one gets away. Yeah, so that's okay. You keep 1 ling for, I guess, vision. You can poke in, take another look later on. Another thing, this Overlord, again, very odd positioning. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Marines could move out and just kill it. And now Kevin getting his lair, throwing down blind spore crawlers. 5 blind spore crawlers. That's unnecessary. But he has no idea what his opponent's doing. And this goes back to the Overlords once again. He should have had one in the back here by now. He should have had the first one. Oh, this was the first one. Okay. He should have had that, I don't know, maybe back here, maybe over here, and then float them on in. But right now, he has no idea. He doesn't know if Banshees are coming his way. He doesn't know if Battle Cruisers are coming his way. So, getting 5 spores. And that's 5 drones. That's 75 minerals each. So, it does matter. Accidentally getting a layer, though. Morphing an Overseer. That's good to load in for a scout later on. Also getting the Overlord's speed. But again, he could have had an Overlord closer to the base and just slowly floated it into scout. And we see the tech of choice from Kevin is going to be Hydras. Not sure why here. We do have a Viking just kind of poking around trying to search for Overlords, but Kevin's Overlord positioning is quite poor. And here we do see finally the first scout, almost 6 minutes into the game. And he's going to pretty much confirm that it's mech. I mean, you see these 2 factories. You're going to be pretty confident that it's mech. And what is the proper response to mech? Well, there's a few things you could do. I personally like Lingbane Roach Ravager. It looks like Kevin's going for Lingbane Hydra, which is not that good. Hydras, I think, are just not good in general. But they do turn into lurkers. So if he techs into lurkers, that can work out for him. And base count only at 3. This third base here barely even saturated. So if we take a quick look at the units, 47 drones at this stage of the game for Zerg is very low. And yeah, he is ahead, but with the mules and stuff, it's pretty close. And now he gets his first sight of these Hellions and Banshee, singular Banshee. He doesn't really have a great answer. His Hydras could potentially melt, but I didn't really want to engage them, want to keep that map control, want to just clear up creep if I didn't fight it. And so Kevin's going to be pretty safe right now, but he did just morph in some more Hydras, and that's kind of the name of the game for Terran and Protoss, honestly. Just put the pressure on the Zerg so that he's not making drones and he's not expanding, he's not out on the map swallowing it up with creep. So that was my plan here with that attack. He's going to go back into droning, kind of, morphing in some Overlords into Dropper Lords, and going back into Ling production now. He's getting 2-2, but he's getting the missile upgrades. I don't like that. I think if any kind of Lingbane army you want to get melee, just because you're going to have more Lingbane than anything else in a proper army. If you go crazy with the Hydras, that's another story. You shouldn't do that in general, but if you do, then fine. And yeah, look at this. Kevin's creep spread has been pushed back pretty far. And if you take a look at that mini-map, there is more ink over there, taking out more stuff. Just get that Banshee, which is nice. Kevin morphing in Banelings now. And his drone count, 56, still not very high. Would ideally like to have 4 or 5 bases, fully saturated, just rolling in dough. He hasn't really been pressured too much, just a handful of Hellions. So, not really an excuse to not have a high enough drone count right now. But he is taking bases 4 and 5, taking those gases right away. His mineral income is quite lacking, I think. I don't want to focus on that first.
The hive cluster is under attack.
Hellions just poking around, keeping the pressure on. So Kevin already going for a hive, getting more and more hydras. And they are completely naked, by the way. No Ling Bane to buffer. And hydras are so squishy. So basically, if they fight anything, they're just gonna melt. Here comes this Bane drop out of Kevin. Very cool idea. And try to get the SCVs, but doesn't really get a whole lot. Maybe a couple Hellions. That wasn't worth it in the end, but I do like the idea. And now Kevin getting 2 more drones. Kind of random there. And again, the worker count just quite abysmal at this point. And again, map vision pretty poor as well. There are no overlords out on the map except these guys flying around. But if a push were to come out, he wouldn't spot it until it's right at his door. So that is one thing that should definitely be improved. Tries to go back in with a drop, but doesn't get anything there. Again, good idea. I like to see that. Keep your opponent thinking. We see Kevin. He is indeed going for the lurker composition. Just pure Hydra lurker. Not great. You do want more stuff protecting your Hydras. And yeah, look at the saturation. That base not saturated at all. Injects not great either. Look at these queens. Does stack them up, which is okay. Only the 2 there. But yeah, this queen 32 energy. This queen 112 energy. Look at this one, 107. So yeah, injects quite poor. Getting Vipers. Vipers, excellent unit, so I do like that. Another Overseer coming on in for a scout. Is gonna spot the army and drops the changeling. How long does that? Oh, okay. I'm gonna say how long does that stay alive, but not very long at all. And Kevin making more army on only 69 workers. Now that is a nice number, but not enough for workers. So Kevin does have a pretty big army because of that low worker count, but his economy gonna be quite poor. He never respread that creep, so that very early Hellion harassment is paying dividends right now because Kevin doesn't have that much vision out on the map. Ideally, you'd be like almost at your opponent's base right now if your creep is untouched. So yeah, definitely should be doing a better job spreading the creep there as well as droning. Seems like those are the major takeaways so far into this game. Unit composition, it's better now with the Lings and Banes. I still don't really like Hydras very much. And scouting, pretty non-existent ever since that initial Overseer. Did fly a second one in, only spotted the unit composition. Didn't search for any tech ups, whatever you want to call it, tech changes, tech ups. So it doesn't know if there are battle cruisers coming. We do see in the production tab that that's not happening yet. There's 3 Marines over there. I just wanted to get rid of those. I do like that he's taking more bases, but worker count, again, very poor. But he has those as an option later on as his initial bases start to dry up. It looks like Kevin's going to be moving out now. He is maxed out. He's accumulating a bank, so it's a good move to try to force the issue, try to take trades on your opponent's side of the map. So I do like this move. But he doesn't know what he's walking into, and he's just gonna stream in blind and
Mineral
kind of
field
YOLO.
depleted.
Now that's a pretty good blinding cloud. Tank's not fully siege, but at this point, I don't know if this is a good move. There are a lot of tanks back there. He still doesn't really see them, so he's just kind of walking into the meat grinder there. A lot of tanks just shelling away. Pretty decent blinding clouds. We do see Kevin lost about, what was that, like 70, 80 supply there.
Mineral field
Pretty
depleted.
costly attack, but not too bad all in all. I think as long as you get a decent trade, you know, you still have a bank, you're doing damage, I guess that is fine. And he does burrow here in the back of the mineral lines. But these lurkers essentially on a suicide mission. It's going to be very difficult to get them out. Kevin doesn't really know what's beyond this little frame of view here. To see those tanks now, and oh, streaming the Hydras in, that is a very poor miscontrol there. And yeah, these tanks just gonna take out the lurkers there. Vipers, not sure what they were doing. I guess they didn't really have energy. Should have pulled them back earlier. They were in a very dangerous position there, but luckily for Kevin, there were no Thors or Vikings or anything that could have taken them out. But always a good move to just pull your Vipers back. When they're done casting their spells, when they're out of energy, just bring them on home. They do cost a lot of money, so ideally you want to keep them alive. And Kevin, he is remaking his army, mostly lurkers, 21 lurkers in production, some lings as well. He is going to remax. And that's the power of Zerg there. You do have a lot of larva if you're playing correctly. And despite his relatively poor injects, he did have enough to remake that army. So that's good on him. But the bank is depleting. He still has enough for maybe one more max out after this, but he is going to need more. Again, his units... drones rather, 65, very low, pretty much on par with the Terran opponent, and that is not what you want as a Zerg player. Now he is finally getting those melee upgrades. That should have been the first choice, but even triple upgrades, that could have been fine, because he has been relatively untouched back at home. And coming in for a scout, that's nice. Spotting and confirming this fourth base. And now going for another attack, gonna find this new base. That's a good move. Forcing the cancel there. And I think at this point, you don't really want to force anything. You know that your opponent is very solidly set up in a defensive position, so you don't really want to engage. Just kind of want to deny his bases. You know, Kevin, he does kind of want to make something happen. He has these high energy Vipers, so maybe he wants to yoink something in, and is going to yoink a tank. That's a good move, but does lose one Viper in the process, so not really a good trade. And then losing two more there, that is definitely not a good trade. So Kevin just gonna back away now and going for double Spire. I guess the idea is Brood Lords, which can be good against a mech army, but Thors in their high impact payload are very powerful, so you will have to be wary if that is what he chooses to do. 5 more Vipers in production. That's always good. Vipers, excellent unit, of course. And just kind of hanging out, and oh, BC's teleporting. Now he did spot them earlier, and he was kind of positioning over there by that 5th base. But no real answer to them. These Hydras not great. I mean, look how far they have to travel to just catch up to those battlecruisers. So those battlecruisers doing a ton of damage. Now Kevin remaking those spires, getting 3 spires actually, and he's just gonna go for a counterattack. I don't mind this because it's gonna take forever to chase down those battlecruisers, and they're probably just gonna teleport away. But this is a terrible move, kind of just funneling into this tiny choke. There are a lot of tanks, which he doesn't even see the end of the line. So losing so many units here. And again, just waddling his lurkers into their deaths. And we see Kevin's supply dropping to 84. He was maxed out, now he's down to 84. That was a very, very costly move.
Our forces are under attack.
Losing his entire army there for very little gain. We see the Terran player, he's chilling at 180 supply. And it was very dicey. These battlecruisers still a thorn in Kevin's side. They're going to take out another base, most likely. And those Vipers, they might have something to say about it, but not too much backup. Hydra's just spawning now, and the yoinks could be good. You want to yoink the battlecruisers over the Hydras, and then the Hydras can take them out. Hydras by themselves, never going to catch up to the battlecruisers. So you gotta use them in conjunction, but he's gonna drop parasitic bombs. Now, that's not really the ideal spell to use on these, because battlecruisers, they are so tanky. They have what 550 HP. So 1 or even 2 parasitic bombs not going to be enough to take out battlecruisers. Now that's what you want to do. You want to yoink them, and look how quickly Hydras can dispatch of them. But battlecruisers do just teleport away. And now Kevin down to only 2 mining bases, and this one in the corner not even technically mining, so not looking too hot there. Units, only 31 drones. Of course, he did lose a lot to those battlecruisers, but he never had that many to begin with. He is not even remaking them, so he is just committing to army, and at this point he is drying up. He's got no more bank. He's not even maxed out. Trying to make another spire there in the corner, but the economy has been absolutely ravaged by the Terran player, and Kevin just doesn't have a good answer. Now, what would be the answer to this composition if we take a look at the full view here? It's a lot of tanks, so Viper is absolutely a great choice. He does have those, but these on the ground, they can work, but the positioning is going to be so important, because tanks do outrange lurkers, so you kind of want to siege them outside of the tank range, somewhere over here, and then yoink the tanks in. It does take a lot of effort, so I prefer Lingbane Roach Ravager. That is also a very difficult style to play. You need to have really good creep spread. You need to have like 90 drones, and you don't want to fight off of creep. Which is another thing that never really restarted after that initial Hellion harassment. So let's take a look back at Kevin's view here. He is trying to remax back up. And gonna yoink some of these battlecruisers. That's a decent. Getting like 3 there. That's a good move. But he did lose, I think, 3 of his Vipers along with that. So that's pretty big. Doesn't really have that much money, so every unit he loses it's going to be very hard to replace. Kevin now just about maxed out again. And going to go for a final push, perhaps. Maybe just looking for more energy on those Vipers first. And yeah, he has the bases, but not the drones. 40 drones only. That is not enough. You see those 2 extra bases here, but there's nothing mining. Just a few guys on gas. And this one, only 1 guy on gas. So Kevin effectively all in with his next move. And yeah, looks like just a slow death now. Another thing that you can think about as a Zerg player going up against mech is infestors with their neural parasite ability. Of course, they are another spellcaster, another difficult thing to use, but consider this. Your opponent has 10 tanks. If you sneak your infestors in, neural like 3 of them, let's say, then all of a sudden your opponent has 7 tanks and you have 3 tanks. So while it was a 10 tank lead, if it becomes 7-3, it's only a 4 tank lead. So that could be something to try. And also, of course, neural other things as well, such as battlecruisers or Thors. A lot of high value targets in here, so a lot of options. Another thing you can try is Swarm Host. Swarm Host is actually very underappreciated tool to deal with turtling opponents. Now, imagine you have some Swarm Hosts up here. You cast the Locusts. So you have like, I don't know, 15, right? And then you cast a Locust. That's 30 Locusts. Float on in. They dive on top of the tanks. They take out a couple tanks. And then the tanks splash on each other, and that costs you nothing because Locusts are free. And when they reload, just do it again, same spot or another spot, and it really forces your opponent into a dicey situation. This is most likely going to be Kevin's last hurrah. Doing a good job kind of sieging up far away from the wall and just busting that down. But kind of getting impatient now, funneling his units in, losing a lot there for very little gain. His supply dropped like 30 or 40 supply there. And that's the difficulty of this style, and especially if all the Vipers went down. And he's going to try to remake more stuff, but we do see the gas bank pretty much all dried up. And drone count never really got back up and running. Now, finally, 28 minutes into the game, starting to respread that creep. That should have come up a lot earlier, especially considering the Terran's map presence pretty much ended after those initial Hellions. So there's no reason why I shouldn't have creep halfway across the map. There's no reason why you shouldn't have like 10 bases by now. It's been very little pressure on the Zerg, save for those BCs. Kevin has somehow reestablished a decent bank. 4k minerals, 800 gas. Not a huge amount, but it's something. And this army, quite formidable, to be honest. Lurker's very powerful, of course, but there's not much else. Lings and Hydras very squishy. They do melt to Hellbats. I think some Banelings would be nice to dispatch of the Hellbats quickly. And yeah, that's all the Lings he has. Those 8 Lings. I do really want more Ling Bane. Essentially any composition. He's going to move this corner base as well, it looks like. His last bastions of income. gonna go down, teleports away, very annoying from the Terran player. And that might just force Kevin to move out now. Let's see how his control is here. Now look, half of these lurkers just not doing anything, so yeah, just inch them forward. You don't have to go all at once like that. Like the guys in the back, unburl them, move them forward. Do like a leapfrog technique. That's something Terran players are likely familiar with. Battle cruisers sniping down a few lurkers. Take a look at this engagement. Look at this, just waddling in. Now that's a Timbo move, and sometimes it can be good. These are some good blinding clouds. So not the worst move, but as the blinding clouds dissipate, there is just not enough Zerg. Everything going to be going down. Dropping down to 70 supply. He does have a little bit of money. He could have tried again, but would have been more of the same. GG gets called.